The ashes of the hearth clung to Cinderella's skin, gritty and dry, but beneath the soot, her body was alive with a burning, insatiable heat. At 18, she was a vision of long, slender limbs and curves that refused to be ignored, even hidden by rags. Her stepmother, Lady Tremaine, was a harridan with a heart as cold as the stone floors she demanded Ella polish, while her stepsisters, Anastasia and Drizella, were vapid, loud-mouthed vixens who spent their days preening and their nights hunting for husbands, leaving Ella alone in the silence of her desire. Tonight was the royal ball, a night of excess and debauchery that the entire kingdom spoke of. The invitations were delivered to the estate, but only for the high society. When Ella asked if she might go, her stepmother sneered, "You go where the prince hunts? You haven't the figure for it, and certainly not the breeding." The cruelty twisted a knot of lust in Ella's gut. She wanted to go. She wanted to be touched, wanted to feel a man's rough hands on her hips, wanted to be consumed by passion. She fled to the garden, tears of frustration mingling with sweat. It was then that the shimmering light appeared, and the fairy godmother stepped out of the bushes. She was a wild, magical creature, her eyes twinkling with mischief and carnal knowledge. "You have the heart of a wanton child," the godmother purred, her voice like the rustle of silk. "You want to go to the ball? To be desired?" "Yes," Ella breathed, her chest heaving. "Then we shall grant your wish, but on one condition. You must be ready to give as good as you get." The godmother raised her wand, not with a gentle wave, but with a commanding thrust. "Listen to me well, Ella. Tonight you are no longer the scullery maid. You are the queen of desire." The magic struck her. Ella gasped as a wave of warmth flooded her veins, making her skin tingle and her nipples harden against her thin, soiled dress. Her rags dissolved, replaced by a gown of midnight blue silk that clung to her body like a second skin, outlining her breasts, cupping her hips, and leaving her long legs bare. Her feet, rough from work, transformed into slippers of shimmering liquid glass that fit her perfectly, heightening every step. "Now go," the godmother commanded, "but remember the magic. It fades at midnight, but the memories will last forever." Ella stepped into the ballroom, and the air changed instantly. The room was a sea of candles, laughter, and heavy perfume. The music was a fast, rhythmic pulse that demanded movement. Ella moved through the crowd, and every head turned. She was a goddess of pure, unadulterated lust. Her hips swayed with an unconscious, seductive grace, drawing eyes like moths to a flame. She moved to the balcony for air, leaning against the stone railing. The cool stone contrasted with the heat radiating from her skin. The prince, a man of 25 with a jawline like granite and eyes that had seen too much of the world, was there, nursing a drink. He watched her, a predator spotting its prey. He didn't introduce himself, didn't ask for her name. He stepped up behind her, his body pressing against hers. "You're burning up, little bird," he growled, his voice a low rumble that vibrated against her ear. Ella turned, her breath catching in her throat. She looked up at him, her eyes dark and hungry. "And you're cold, my lord," she replied, her voice a sultry purr. He laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Cold? I'm just warming up." He took her hand, his grip firm and demanding. "Dance with me." The dance dance was a battle of wills. He pulled her close, their bodies grinding together. He could feel the heat of her through the silk, and she could feel the hardness of him pressing against her stomach. Every spin brought them closer, their chests heaving, their sweat mingling. The music was fast, but they moved slow, savoring the tension. "You're different," he whispered, his lips brushing against her neck. "I've never felt a woman like you, so ready." "I was made for tonight," she whispered back. They broke away, and he led her out of the ballroom, through a secret passage, and into a secluded alcove in the royal gardens. The moon was high, casting a silver glow over the rose bushes. He pushed her against the rough stone wall, his hands palming her breasts, squeezing them roughly. She moaned, a sound of pure pleasure and surrender. "I want you," he said, his voice thick with need. "I want to feel you, right now." "Then take me," she challenged, her hands unbuttoning his coat, her fingers trembling with anticipation. He didn't waste a second. He tore at her dress, ripping the silk to reveal her naked body to the cool night air. Her skin flushed a deep crimson. He tasted her, his mouth claiming hers in a fierce, wet kiss. He tasted the wine on her lips and the salt of her sweat. His hands roamed her body, his fingers digging into her hips, pulling her flush against him. He was rock hard, a steel rod pressing against her belly. She wrapped her legs around his waist, pulling him closer. He lifted her, and she wrapped her arms around his neck. He entered her with a single, powerful thrust. She gasped, her body stretching to accommodate him, her nails digging into his shoulders. It was painful yet euphoric, a feeling of being split open and filled to the brim. He began to move, his thrusts deep and fast, hitting her with a force that made her see stars. The garden was their only audience, the rustling leaves the only sound over their ragged breaths. She met his rhythm, her hips bucking up to meet him, her body aching with the intensity of the pleasure building inside her. She was a creature of pure sensation, her mind blank except for the feeling of him inside her, filling her, claiming her. "Oh, yes," she cried out, her voice echoing in the night. "Harder!" He obeyed, pounding into her with abandon. Her breasts bounced with every thrust, the friction sending jolts of electricity to her core. She felt herself approaching the edge, the pressure building, the world narrowing down to the sensation of his cock driving into her over and over. She screamed his name, her body arching, her back bowing as she came, her inner muscles clamping down around him, milking him for every drop. He thrust once more, deep and hard, and she felt him shudder, felt his hot seed spurting inside her. They collapsed against the wall, panting, their bodies joined, sweat and fluids mingling. He held her close, his heart hammering against hers. "This is just the beginning," he murmured against her neck, his lips trailing kisses along her collarbone. "I won't let you go." Ella smiled, a satisfied, wicked smile. "Good," she whispered, "because I'm not letting you go either." But the clock struck 12, a sharp, ringing sound that shattered the moment. The magic was fading. The blue silk of her dress began to fray, turning back into rags. The glass slipper began to dull. "Midnight!" she gasped, scrambling away from him. "I have to go." "No," he said, grabbing her wrist. "Stay. I'll find you. I'll never let you go." "I don't know your name," she said, panic rising. "I don't have anything." "Just the slipper," he said, pointing to the discarded glass shoe near the fountain. "I'll know it when I see it. I'll know the woman who made me come like that." He kissed her one last time, a searing, desperate kiss. "Run, Ella, before it's too late." She ran, her heart pounding, her body still humming with pleasure. She reached the steps of the castle just as the clock finished its final chime. She looked back at the prince who was watching her, his eyes burning with a possessive fire. She turned and ran into the night, the glass slipper clutched in her hand, its magic fading with every step. The next morning the castle was abuzz. The prince was desperate. He had spent the entire night tossing and turning, his body aching for the woman he had just met. He declared a decree. Any woman in the kingdom who could fit into the glass slipper would be his wife. The search began. The prince traveled from town to town, his eyes scanning every woman he saw, looking for the spark of desire, the mark of his passion. He found many women who tried on the slipper, but none fit, none felt right. Their touch was cold, their kiss lukewarm. They were all trying to please him, trying to be the perfect royal bride, but they lacked the raw, unbridled lust that had consumed him the night before. Finally, his horse brought him back to the stepmother's estate. He dismounted, his eyes scanning the gardens. He saw the sisters, vain and plastic, and he ignored them. He saw the stepmother, a cruel smile on her face, and he ignored her. He saw Ella, scrubbing the steps, her head bowed, her body hidden under layers of old rags. He walked up to her. "Are you Ella?" he asked. She looked up, startled. "Yes, my lord." "Stand up," he commanded. She hesitated, but did as she was told. She was tall, her legs long and strong, her figure hidden by the coarse fabric. He looked at her, his eyes drinking in every inch of her. He saw the curve of her hips, the swell of her breasts, the pulse in her neck. He saw the hunger in her eyes. He held out the glass slipper. "Put this on." She hesitated, then slipped her foot into it. It fit perfectly. It was as if the shoe had been made for her. He smiled, a wicked, triumphant smile. "I knew it," he said. "I knew the woman who stole my heart, and my body would be the one." He took her hand, his grip tight. "Come with me. We have a lot of catching up to do." He led her back to the castle, not as a prisoner, but as a lover. The wedding was a whirlwind of celebration, but the true celebration was the night that followed. The prince didn't wait for the honeymoon. He took her to his chambers, locking the door behind them. He tore off her wedding dress, not with reverence, but with a fierce carnal need. He wanted to feel her, to taste her, to claim her again. They made love on the floor, on the bed, against the walls. They were wild, desperate creatures, consumed by a lust that no decree could contain. They were equals in passion and in love. They spent the entire night locked in a frenzy of bodies and mouths, exploring every inch of each other until they were too exhausted to move. When the sun finally rose, they lay tangled in the sheets, their bodies glistening with sweat and fluids. He pulled her close, his arm around her waist. "I found you," he whispered. She snuggled into his chest, a contented sigh escaping her lips. "You found me," she replied, "and I'm never letting you go." And so, Cinderella lived happily ever after, not as a docile princess waiting for a prince to save her, but as a queen who ruled her kingdom with her heart and her body, her passion as deep and enduring as the love she shared with her prince.